With just 10 minutes left before we move to qualification, there is not long left for these drivers to finish their preparations. Simon of the Desert is on his practice out lap. It's a lovely day for racing here at ASRL Österreichring. No chicane as we watch these drivers warm up and get ready for the race. Jake just posted a 1:46.778 crossing start finish. Jake Feemster has a best lap time of 1:46.778.
There is always more time to be found, but Feemster is not guaranteed to find it.
Jake Feemster posted 1:46.778 on his last lap, and will be pushing hard for an even lower time. Ryan Wilson has a best lap time of 1:48.127. Ryan just posted a 1:48.127 crossing start finish.
The time clock can be a cruel mistress that is all too willing to show you your faults.
Ryan Wilson has a best lap time of 1:48.127.
If there is still time on the clock, there is still time to improve.
With just 7 minutes left before we move to qualification, there is not long left for these drivers to finish their preparations. MkII posted 1:46.411 on his last lap, and will be pushing hard for an even lower time.
MkII is not giving up and will be looking for every 10th.
Malero has a best lap time of 1:58.220. Malero has a best lap time of 1:58.220. With just 6 minutes left before we move to qualification, there is not long left for these drivers to finish their preparations.
The time clock can be a cruel mistress that is all too willing to show you your faults.
Adam just posted a 1:49.231 crossing start finish.
If there is still time on the clock, there is still time to improve.
Adam has a best lap time of 1:49.231. Adam has a best lap time of 1:49.231.
There is always more time to be found, but Adam is not guaranteed to find it.
Get ready for some high-octane action, as the drivers take on the challenge of qualifying at ASRL Österreichring. No chicane.
Strap in, folks, because we're in for a wild ride.
This is where the mental game comes into play. Ryan Wilson is taking his time to prepare for his qualifying run.
It's a delicate balance between taking it easy and pushing hard. Let's see how Wilson handles it.
Ryan Wilson is expertly commanding that car through flat shock. Ryan Wilson appears focused and prepared driving through Bosch curve. The adrenaline is pumping. Kevin Lekmanski is on his out lap, warming up the tires and getting ready to put in a fast lap time.
He'll want to get a good gap established for the flying lap.
Kevin Lekmanski is looking relatively composed going through Raiffeisenhügel.
Don't forget to check out the views near Raiffeisenhügel, they are fantastic.
You can feel the tension building. Sketty is out on track and getting ready to push for his qualifying time. Sketty is working his way through Dr. Tyrek curve.
Fuel, fumes, fans, and fights, Dr. Tyrek curve has it all.
That ASRL T70 MkII Spyder looks good driving through Bosch curve. It looks like Jake Feimster is getting ready to make his move. He's taking his time to warm up those tires and get everything just right. Jake Feimster is driving through flat shock. Jake Feimster is keeping his head down through Valvoline Girard.
Fans sitting near Valvoline Girard get some of the best views of the action.
Malero is on his out lap.
It's all about finding that balance between staying calm and focused, while also pushing the limits.
Malero is looking relatively composed going through Raiffeisenhügel. It's clear that Kevin Lekmanski is pushing his car to the very edge of traction on this qualifying lap. Kevin Lekmanski crosses the start-finish line at the end of his out lap. Adam will be looking to use this first hot lap to set a solid time in the standings. Adam appears focused and prepared driving through Hella Licht S.
I have always loved this section of the track.
There are just over 10 minutes left in this qualification session. That's the outlap done for Simon of the Desert. He'll now look to focus on his first flying lap. The pressure is on in this qualifying session, but Kevin Lekmanski is rising to the occasion. Kevin Lekmanski is expertly commanding that car through Bosch curve.
This is such a great track. I need to make it back here more often.
Adam is on his first flying lap. Adam completes that lap in his ASRL T70 MkII Spyder, putting him in P5. It's all about precision and speed in qualifying, and Simon of the Desert is nailing both. Simon of the Desert is driving through Valvoline Girard.
If Simon listens closely, the sounds of cheering fans should just barely be audible over the roar of the engine.
It's clear that David Zahn is pushing his car to the very edge of traction on this qualifying lap.
Let's see if he can put a good marker down.
David Zahn is 0.23 up driving through Texaco chicane.
The rest of this lap is no cakewalk. Let's hope he can keep it up.
David Zahn is now up 0.37 in Jochen-Rindt curve.
There's no guarantee that David can maintain this delta through the rest of the lap.
David Zahn has completed that flying lap in 1:44.964, which is good enough for P3, down 0.216 to the leader. David Zahn has just completed that lap in 1:44.964, which is 0.216 off the best time, putting him in P3. Stefano Amadei will be looking to use this first hot lap to set a solid time in the standings.
It's always impressive to see a driver in the zone like this. Let's see if he can maintain this pace.
Stefano Amadei just clocked a 1:47.857, 3.109 off of P1 and good enough for P8. Let's see if he can improve on that time further. The pressure is on in this qualifying session, but Jake Feemster is rising to the occasion. Jake Feemster has improved by 27.35 up through Texaco Chicane. Jake Feemster has completed that flying lap in 1:45.408, which is good enough for P4, down 0.66 to the leader. Malero is in the green by 0.26. Malero is currently on provisional pole, with a time of 1:44.597. That ASRL T70 MkII Spyder looks good driving through Texaco Chicane. Stefano Amadei has just completed that lap in 1:47.857, which is 3.26 off the best time, putting him in P9.
The ASRL T70 MkII Spyder is indeed a sweet-ass looking ride.
Ryan Wilson looks to be off the leader by 0.787. Ada, what can he do to improve?
Well, he'll need to find those extra tenths of a second by pushing just a little bit harder on the braking and carrying more speed through the corners.
Sketty is working his way through Raiffeisenhuber. Ryan Wilson is up 0.1. Ryan Wilson appears focused and prepared driving through Texaco Chicane. There are just over 5 minutes left in this qualification session. Jake Feemster will be happy, with a time good enough for fourth in this qualifying session. Jake Feemster is looking relatively composed going through Hella-Licht S. Jake Feemster will be happy, with a time good enough for fourth in this qualifying session.
It may be difficult for him to find that missing 0.712, but that won't stop him from trying.
Ryan Wilson is currently up 0.16 going through Texaco Chicane. Simon of the Desert is keeping his head down through Texaco chicane.
When I get some free time after the race, I'm going to park my pudding near Texaco chicane with a nice drink and some friends.
Kevin Lekmansky is now up 0.21. Kevin Lekmansky is driving through Texaco chicane and is up 0.15. Kevin Lekmansky is expertly commanding that car through Jochen Rindt curve.
Spectators near here can smell the smoke wafting from nearby grills.
Kevin Lekmansky is currently on provisional pole, with a time of 1:44.519.
It may be difficult for him to improve on that. Sometimes trying too hard makes you slower. It's far better to drive smooth and smart.
That ASRL T70 MkII Spyder looks good driving through Bosch curve.
The action and glory drivers have lived here at Bosch curve is truly historic.
Simon of the Desert is driving through Raiffeisenhügel. Simon of the Desert has some work to do, as his best time of 1:45.531 is only good enough for 6th. Kevin Lekmansky is looking relatively composed going through Raiffeisenhügel.
This track has many great straights and corners, but this one is especially good.
Kevin Lekmansky is currently on provisional pole, with a time of 1:44.519. What a performance from Jake Feemster, currently in 4th on the grid. It's a good spot for now, but other drivers are trying their hardest to put in a better time and push him down the order.
Absolutely. How? Feemster has put in a remarkable effort to secure 4th. The competition is fierce, and he'll need to stay focused to defend the position.
Jake Feemster will be happy, with a time good enough for 3rd in this qualifying session. It's an impressive showing by Simon of the Desert, currently in 6th. He's showcased his talent, but will need to find those crucial extra tenths to climb higher.
I completely agree. How? Simon has plenty of opportunity starting in 6th. However, it's crucial for him to keep pushing and make up some positions in the race.
Simon of the Desert is keeping his head down through Jochen Rindt curve.
Don't forget to check out the views near Jochen Rindt curve, they are fantastic.
Simon of the Desert will be happy, with a time good enough for 5th in this qualifying session. Simon of the Desert is expertly commanding that car through Helolicht S. Currently in 3rd, Jake Feemster has displayed promising speed during the qualifying session. The real test lies in whether he can convert this performance into a higher grid position. Jake Feemster is down 0.88 seconds on the way through Texaco chicane.
Being in the green and maintaining it is hard enough, but making up lost time is almost impossible.
It seems like Jake Feemster is struggling, currently 1.22 off his best pace up through Jochen-Rindt curve.
Feemster needs to regroup, refocus, and knock it up a notch.
Impressive work from David Zahn, who has claimed fourth on the grid. Now, the focus is on maintaining his composure and push for an even better starting position.
Spot-on analysis, how? David is positioned well in fourth. It's crucial for him to maintain his focus and defend his position in the upcoming race.
David Zahn is working his way through Raiffeisenhügel. David Zahn will be happy, with a time good enough for fourth in this qualifying session.
Every fraction of a second counts. He is surely working on that 0.431 gap to pole.
It's a beautifully calm day here at ASRL Österreichring, no chicane, as we're getting ready to kick things off.
The drivers are looking focused out there on the grid. I'm excited for this one, Hal.
Kevin Lechmansky will be looking to convert his pole position into a win.
It's also a nightmare if he can't hold onto it. Let's see how he will handle the pressure.
Mellero is starting this race on the front row.
He can't let that advantage go to waste. He will need to stay focused and keep his eyes on the prize.
It's Jake Feemster, sitting comfortably in third.
Like many others, Feemster is starting the race on the Standards tire compound.
David Zahn is going to be starting from fourth.
Starting from here, Zahn may already have expectations of a podium finish.
Simon of the Desert is holding down the fort in fifth place.
Let's see what Simon can do.
Holding strong in sixth place is Ryan Wilson.
Big things expected for Ryan today.
Sketty has qualified seventh.
The American driver has been driving the wheels off the ASRL T70 MkII Spyder in practice.
On the eighth grid slot we have Adam.
Adam would have liked to be higher up, but that's not going to stop him fighting his way through.
Stefano Amadei is placed in ninth.
The proof will most definitely be in the pudding for this American driver.
The green light signals the beginning of an epic race. As the drivers jostle for position, it's all about keeping their cool under pressure.
Avoiding contact while trying to gain position is essential. The first lap is often where we see incidents that can change the course of the race.
As we watch the drivers fight it out in the first lap, I can already feel that this is going to be an epic race.
What a beautiful day for racing here at ASRL Österreichring, no chicane. This is going to be good to watch.
All the drivers will be trying to take advantage of the pack whilst they're still bunched up. The pressure is on when the field is this tightly packed. Maintaining just enough aggression to hold off their rivals without pushing too hard will help these drivers keep it clean.
With this motley bunch of drivers, there is bound to be drama. I just hope we don't miss it.
I think passing is going to be difficult today here at ASRL Österreichring, no chicane, so it's going to be interesting to see how these drivers get on. The drivers are jockeying for position. Sketty will be looking to get off to a good start and consolidate his position.
There are a few drivers with a point to prove, and a few with some grudges to bear. Let's hope they can keep it clean.
Having started in P4, David Zahn will be hoping for a good result in this race. Ryan Wilson will be studying the nearby drivers and looking for anything that could give them an advantage. Every lap is an opportunity for Sketty to learn just a little bit more to shave a few tenths or hundredths off his times.
Every corner, every lap, and every race is a chance for these drivers to hone their abilities and improve their skills.
It's a steady race for Sketty so far, keeping it clean and maintaining focus.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. Sketty just needs to bide his time and wait for the right opportunity.
This is where the skill and precision of the drivers really comes into play. Adam is chasing David Zahn in P6.
This is not going to be an easy pass to make.
Ryan Wilson is on a mission, chasing Adam, who's desperately trying to stay ahead. It's a tight race with David Zahn in 6th just managing to stay ahead of Adam in 7 by a margin of 0.2 seconds. Heartbreak for David Zahn as they slip down the field. Braking alert. I don't think that's the fastest way around ASRL Österreichring, no chicane.
It's a real shame. Until this point in the race he'd been looking at a decent result.
Things are heating up as Malero tries to close the gap to Jake Feemster.
It's all about choosing the right moments to push and when to conserve energy, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike.
Braking alert. I don't think that's the fastest way around ASRL Österreichring, no chicane.
It's a real shame. Until this point in the race he'd been looking at a decent result.
The battle for P1 is heating up as Jake Feemster tries to catch Kevin Lekmanski in P1. It's been a solid race so far for Jake Feemster. He's holding his position and keeping a steady pace.
Sometimes that's all it takes to secure a good result. Jake just needs to stay focused and avoid any mistakes.
Sketty is giving it his all, chasing down Simon of the Desert in P4.
It's a game of strategy now as Sketty hunts down Simon.
Great driving from Sketty, who has just gained a place and moved up to 4th.
You can't argue with results like that. Sketty is really making his mark on this race.
It doesn't seem like things are going to plan for Simon of the Desert as there is a big gap ahead.
Every race adds to a driver's experience, both good and bad. It just highlights that Simon is going to have to get more serious with practice to not get outclassed on the circuit.
It's not looking good for Simon of the Desert, who is still behind Stefano Amadei, and the gap is increasing. The race is really heating up. David Zahn is hunting down Sketty with everything he's got.
Dave is looking to close the 0.7 second gap and make a pass.
It's game on now. David Zahn has closed the gap to Sketty. It's now down to 0.6 seconds.
Exactly what Zahn needed. He can't afford to lose any more ground to Sketty.
It's a classic case of chasing down the car ahead for Jake Feemster, who is currently in P2.
Indeed, the anticipation is high as Feemster tries to reel in MkII.
Jake Feemster is pushing hard and has reduced the gap to Kevin MkII to 1.2 seconds. Sketty is pushing really hard, but as we know, pushing too hard can lead to other mistakes, like locking up the brakes or missing a shift. Hold up, braking info, and Sketty has just won the place from Malero. Oh my, David Zahn is hot on the tail of Malero as they drive through Valvoline Jurade.
It's a battle of nerves now. Zahn and Malero are both pushing hard, but need to avoid mistakes that might cost them time or positions.
It's not going to plan for David Zahn, who is trailing behind Malero and the gap is widening. He may not have an answer for this right now.
David needs to focus and keep pushing, even when things aren't going his way. If he can close the gap down, he may be able to bring the fight to Malero.
Breaking update. Oh dear, Malero has had an incident. The gap is just over a second, and I'm sure Jake Feemster is going to do everything possible to try and close the distance. He's not giving up without a fight.
Feemster needs to find a little extra speed to bring the fight to MkII and move up the field.
It looks like Kevin MkII is pulling away from Jake Feemster. The gap is continuing to grow as they head through Jokenrink curve. Malero is running fifth and trying to catch Stefano Amadei.
It's all about finding the perfect opportunity. Malero needs to stay patient and wait for Stefano to make a mistake.
It looks like we might get a battle between Malero and Stefano Amadei.
This is what racing is all about. Hard-fought battles with as much determination as respect, between friends and enemies alike.
Looks like we've had a few incidents out there.
Someone forgot to take their driving lessons. They're making more U-turns than a confused tourist.
Hilarious. I think they might need to call their GPS for directions. Maybe it can help them navigate the track. It's a tense battle for position between Malero in 4th and Stefano Amadei in 5. Malero is keeping Stefano Amadei at bay with a gap of 0.1 seconds.
This is a tight race and Malero is doing a great job of holding him off. It will be interesting to see if Stefano can make a move.
Looks like Stefano Amadei is really hitting those curves aggressively, which can unsettle the car and cause handling issues.
Indeed, taking too much curve can upset the car's balance, leading to oversteer or understeer. Stefano needs to focus to have a chance at getting past Malero.
Every move counts now as David Zahn works to reel in Simon of the Desert and overtake for P6. This is where the race gets really interesting. Stefano Amadei is closing in on Malero.
The gap is 0.4 seconds now. Stefano is going to have to work a bit harder to close that gap with Malero.
Stefano Amadei is trying his best, but can't seem to find the pace to keep up with Malero at the moment. These drivers are walking a razor's edge between pushing the limits and making costly errors.
Absolutely. It's all about finding that sweet spot where you're pushing the car to its limits without crossing the line into reckless driving. The racing is getting tight between Dave and Simon as they battle for P6. No doubt, both drivers know that one mistake could cost them the position. It's a test of nerves as much as skill.
David Zahn appears to be losing ground on Simon of the Desert. He'll need to pick up the pace a bit heading into Dr. Tiric Curve to get a good exit and gain some ground.
Zahn really needs to push and drive Tiric Curve to gain some ground before Simon drives off into the sunset.
Well, it doesn't look like Jake Feemster is going to be much of a threat to anyone soon, let alone Kevin MkII.
Feemster certainly isn't going to be close enough to mount any kind of challenge soon unless it's down to a mistake from MkII.
The The pressure is on as David Zahn tries to catch up to Simon of the Desert. The gap between David Zahn and Simon of the Desert is getting smaller. Things don't seem to be going Jake Feemster's way in this race, as that's a big gap he'll have to close to even be in with a shout for gaining a place here.
It's not over until the checkered flag drops, and it's important to maintain concentration until you've made it to the finish line.
The gap between David Zahn and Simon of the Desert is razor thin as they vie for 6th in this nail-biting contest. Breaking news, folks. It's looking good for David Zahn, who has gained a place after passing Simon of the Desert.
The chase between David and Simon is like a high-speed game of tag only. The stakes are much higher.
Simon of the Desert is having to make that ASRL T70 MkII Spyder as wide as possible to try and keep David Zahn behind him.
This is a close race. Simon is doing a great job defending P6. Zahn is looking for any opportunity to put his nose in there and get Simon off the racing line.
This is what racing is all about. Two fierce competitors pushing each other to the limit.
Should things go south between David and Simon, we might witness a high-speed game of bumper cars, but trust me, it's way less fun with real race cars.
It looks like David Zahn is making a move. The gap to Simon of the Desert is now down to 0.1 seconds. This is where the skill and precision of the drivers really comes into play. Jake Feemster is chasing Kevin Lekmanski in P1.
This is where every inch counts. Jake is pushing hard to close the gap on Kevin. Absolutely, precision and control are key here. Knowing when to push and when to hold back can be the difference between winning and losing.
Simon of the Desert wants to get into David Zahn's slipstream.
Rubbing's racing, but let's just hope they don't rub it too hard.
The gap between Simon of the Desert and David Zahn is growing. It's now up to 0.4 seconds.
This is where the mental toughness of Simon comes into play. He'll need to stay focused and keep pushing, even when things aren't going his way.
This is a thrilling battle as Jake Feemster edges closer to Kevin Lekmanski in their fight for P1.
The mental game is just as important here. Feemster must keep his cool while putting pressure on Lekmanski.
It's game on now. Jake Feemster has closed the gap to Kevin Lekmanski. It's now down to 0.3 seconds.
This is where the pressure really starts to build. A driver that stays calm and focused is more likely to come out on top.
It's a brilliant day for racing, and the drivers are putting on a show.
Absolutely. What a great race we are witnessing today. These drivers are giving it their all, and it's a thrill to watch them compete at this level.
They're really pushing themselves and their machines to the limit, and it's paying off with some incredible driving.
It's a pleasure to be here today. Hal, you really can't beat the excitement of a good race, especially one as competitive as this.
Things are heating up as Jake Feemster tries to close the gap to Kevin Lekmanski. Look at that, David Zahn is hot on the tail of Stefano Amadei. Superb driving from David Zahn, who with that overtake has gained a position in the race. You know, Ada, as a former racing driver yourself, can you give us some insights into what goes through a driver's mind during these quieter moments in a race?
Sure, Hal. During these moments, drivers often take the opportunity to assess their race strategy, monitor their car's performance, and plan their next move. It's all about staying focused and finding the right time to strike.
The crowd is on its feet as Simon of the Desert chases down Stefano Amadei through Raiffeisenhügel.
This is what makes motor racing so exciting. The tension is high and the stakes are even higher. I would not bet on either racer at this point, as it's too close to call.
Jake Feemster is looking for an opportunity to get around Kevin Lekmanski.
I might have said this before, but dog, bone, you know the rest.
We're starting to see who really has the pace now in this race as Simon of the Desert is starting to climb all over the back of Stefano Amadei. Any closer and he may need to pop the boot. Hold on to your hats, folks. Simon of the Desert is right on the heels of Stefano Amadei, and we're in for a wild ride.
When I was racing, we had a saying, if you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much space. Simon is definitely living on the edge today.
Jake Feemster is on a mission, chasing Kevin Lekmansky, who's desperately trying to stay ahead. Good news for Jake Feemster, the gap to Kevin Lekmansky has decreased. It's now down to 0.3 seconds.
He'll be looking for a mistake to pounce on.
Pushing too hard can lead to mistakes, and we're seeing that now. That car is really unsettled from being pushed for every last bit of speed. Hold on a moment. A great pass for Simon of the Desert, swapping places with Stefano Amadei to move up the field.
Absolutely. Simon is showing great pace and determination, but he can't get too confident. There are still plenty of challenges ahead.
Stefano Amadei wants to close that gap with Simon of the Desert.
If you don't push the boundaries, you will never know where they are.
Jake Feemster is giving it his all, chasing down Kevin Lekmansky in P1.
It's a game of strategy now as Feemster hunts down Lekmansky. Yes, it's all about choosing the right moments to push and when to conserve energy, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike.
Oh, this is getting intense. Stefano Amadei is just a few car lengths behind Simon of the Desert.
I would not be surprised to see him get this pass completed soon.
It looks like Kevin Lekmansky is all over Jake Feemster going through Dr. Tirek curve, increasing the pressure and hoping for a mistake. Braking development. An impressive showing from Kevin Lekmansky, who has gained positions and left Jake Feemster in the dust.
He'll need to keep it on the road, or at the very least the rumble strips. The fastest way around is not usually in the grass. As the saying goes, too much grass will slow you down.
It's a game of inches now as Jake Feemster tails Kevin Lekmansky closely, ready to capitalize on any mistake.
At this rate, Feemster and Lekmansky are so close, they could share a cup of tea and a biscuit.
Stop the press. A great moment for Stefano Amadei, who has just gained a place and moved up the standings. Wow, Stefano Amadei is really pushing hard to catch up to Simon of the Desert.
This is the moment where legends are made. These drivers will go down in history as the ones who fought tooth and nail for the top spot.
The battle for P1 is heating up as Jake Feemster tries to catch Kevin Lekmansky in P1. Rising to the occasion and claiming victory would help to cement Stefano Amadei's legendary status.
That's right, Hal. The pressure can easily get the best of even seasoned drivers. The fans are on the edge of their seats, waiting to see who will come out on top in this epic showdown.
The gap between Stefano Amadei and Simon of the Desert is widening. It's now up to 0.7 seconds.
This is a frustrating situation for Stefano, but he can't give up just yet. He'll need to keep pushing and hope for a mistake from Simon.
Looks like Jake Feemster is really hitting those curbs aggressively, which can unsettle the car and cause handling issues.
Indeed, taking too much curb can upset the car's balance, leading to oversteer or understeer.
It looks like we might get a battle between Jake Feemster and Kevin Lekmansky. That's not a small gap, but Stefano Amadei has what it takes to challenge for the position. Hold that thought. Now I may be wrong here, but I'm not sure that's the racing line.
Simon is not making it easy, maintaining a consistent pace.
Jake Feemster is pushing really hard, but as we know, pushing too hard can lead to other mistakes, like locking up the brakes or missing a shift.
The gap between them is just over 0.5 seconds, which can feel like miles if you're trailing and not catching up.
The gap between Jake Feemster and Kevin Lekmansky is getting smaller. Kevin Lekmansky is looking for a way round Jake Feemster.
And Lekmansky is poised to capitalize on any mistake. It's just a matter of who cracks first.
It's not going to plan for Kevin Lekmansky, who is trailing behind Jake Feemster and the gap is widening. He may not have an answer for this right now. Braking alert. It's a tale of two drivers right now, with Kevin Lekmansky gaining places and Jake Feemster losing them.
Absolutely, Hal, but there's still a long way to go in this race, and Kevin can't afford to get complacent. He needs to pick up the pace for sure, but that's not always a real possibility.
Hold on a second. Disappointing for Jake Feemster, falling down the order to 5th.
Definitely, but Jake is a skilled driver, and has what it takes to fight back and regain that position.
Jake Feemster has a mountain to climb at the moment to close that gap with MkII. I expect his only hope at this point is that MkII makes an error. It's all about consistency for Simon of the Desert, who is currently 5th.
Yes, but Simon has to keep his focus and drive with intensity. There's still a long way to go in this race.
That won't be ideal for Simon of the Desert. Hold your breath, folks. These drivers are showing exceptional car control, threading the needle through tight corners. It's a battle for supremacy. Braking alert. Tough break for Simon of the Desert, who has just lost a position. The gap between Adam and Ryan Wilson is pretty substantial right now. It's probably going to take a mistake from Adam to even allow Ryan to get a look in.
Anything can happen yet, and it usually does. I've certainly seen drivers come back from worse.
Ryan Wilson is pushing hard and has reduced the gap to Adam to 2.6 seconds. Stefano Amadei is staying focused while chasing Simon of the Desert in P6. It's certainly not going to plan for Stefano Amadei right now, who is struggling to keep up with Simon of the Desert. It doesn't seem like things are going to plan for Sketty as there is a big gap ahead.
Every race adds to a driver's experience, both good and bad. It just highlights that Sketty is going to have to get more serious with practice to not get outclassed on the circuit.
It looks like Sketty is making a move. The gap to Kevin Lekmanski is now down to 1.3 seconds.
That's a great effort from Sketty. He'll need to keep up the pressure and see if he can make a move.
During your racing career, Ada, how did you determine when it was the right time to pit for fresh tires due to tire degradation?
It was a combination of factors: Hal, monitoring lap times, communicating with the team about tire wear, and assessing the car's handling were all crucial in deciding when to make a pit stop for fresh tires.
Things don't seem to be going Sketty's way in this race, as that's a big gap he'll have to close to even be in with a shout for gaining a place here. A strong showing from Jake Feemster, who is currently 5th.
Definitely, but he can't get too comfortable. There are plenty of other drivers gunning for that position, and Feemster has to keep pushing to stay on the pace.
Things are starting to get tense as Simon of the Desert manages to close the gap to Jake Feemster. It's now down to 8.0 seconds.
He'll need to step up his game and start pulling away again.
Stefano Amadei has a mountain to climb at the moment to close that gap with Simon of the Desert. I expect his only hope at this point is that Simon makes an error. Wait. Looks like that's a mistake from David Zahn. This could be costly.
Zahn is not going to be happy about that.
The gap between Kevin Lekmanski and Sketty is pretty substantial right now. It's probably going to take a mistake from Kevin to even allow Sketty to get a look in. What a move. Sketty has moved up to 1st. Braking development. Oh dear, Kevin Lekmanski has had an incident.
Oops, Lekmanski is going to be wishing that hadn't happened. Yes, Sketty is driving with real focus and precision, and it's paying off.
The race is really heating up. Jake Feemster is hunting down Simon of the Desert with everything he's got. Jake Feemster is trying his best, but can't seem to find the pace to keep up with Simon of the Desert at the moment.
This is a tough situation for Feemster. He'll need to find a way to pick up some speed and close that gap.
This is where the race gets really interesting. Ryan Wilson is closing in on David Zahn. Hold on a moment. Big gains for Ryan Wilson as they move up the field, leaving David Zahn behind.
Definitely, but there's still a long way to go in this race, and anything can happen. Wilson needs to keep driving with focus and intensity. With just 0.5 seconds between them, Wilson will need to close the gap to have hopes of a pass.
Wow, Sketty is really pushing hard in these final moments of the race.
Sketty is not leaving anything on the table.
The leader has done it. What an incredible performance from Sketty, who was simply untouchable today. This is a race that will go down in the history books. Kevin MkII never gave up. He drove with heart and determination, ultimately securing a well-deserved second-place finish. That was an outstanding performance from MkII. He fought hard and took the final spot on the podium.
Fantastic result.
Finishing fourth is Simon of the Desert. Fifth is Stefano Amadei. Jake Feemster end in sixth. Ryan Wilson brings home seventh. Coming in eighth we have David Zahn. Adam claimed ninth. It's a beautifully calm day here at ASRL Österreichring, no chicane, as we're getting ready to get things underway. Adam will be feeling confident starting from pole position.
He can't get cocky. This is ASRL, and anything can happen.
David Zahn has a great opportunity starting on the front row.
This is a great place to be, but there's always the threat of drivers right behind getting a better start and a slipstream into the first turn.
We're seeing Ryan Wilson in the third spot.
Another good start for the Canadian driver.
On the fourth grid slot we have Jake Feemster.
Jake will be ready to show what he's made of.
Lining up in fifth is Stefano Amadei.
A strong grid position, and he'll be expecting a solid result today.
As the drivers prepare to take off, Simon of the Desert sits in sixth place on the starting grid.
It's not always easy to get the ASRL T70 MkII Spyder this high up the starting grid.
Our seventh place starter, MkII, is a driver who knows how to make up ground on the track.
An opportunity for some good points today, but the others aren't going to make it easy.
From the middle of the pack, we have Kevin MkII in eighth place on the starting grid.
Kevin will have wanted a better start than eighth.
The ninth starting position belongs to Sketty, who will be looking to make up ground early on.
He's got the heart of a lion, and he won't back down from a challenge.
The green flag is waving and we're off to the races. Let's see who can get out in front and establish an early lead.
The opening lap is often a hotbed of potential problems. The ability to steer clear of any mishaps will set the stage for a successful race.
It's brilliant to see such a full grid here today.
Let's hope everyone is able to stay focused for the challenge ahead.
The tensions are high, and no one will want to make a crucial mistake on the first lap. There's some intense battling throughout the field as everyone is feeling out the drivers around them.
Like gladiators, they enter hell, but instead of lions and swords, our champions fight in an arena of tarmac, and with fire-breathing machines of cutting-edge materials, designed to explore the very limits of physics itself in what can sometimes be very much a fight to the death.
The racing is normally closely fought here at ASRL Österreichring, no chicane. I think we are in for a cracking race.
It all comes down to this hell, where the rubber meets the road. There's no more time for talk, no more practice. The teams have done all they can, now it comes down to Feimster to bring it home.
This is going to be one hell of a race, I can already feel it. Is there a better sight than a field of elite racing drivers battling for position? Sketty has nailed the start, gaining places early on, so he should be pleased with that.
A blazing start for Sketty, but as we all know, slow and steady can still win the race. Let's see if he can hold on to his advantage.
It's neck and neck, the closest battle we've seen in a while.
That's right, Jake is determined to pass Ryan and secure a higher position.
Malero is holding fifth, but Kevin Lekmanski is right on his tail. They're going for the same piece of tarmac. Sparks are flying as they battle for position, daring each other to brake later and go deeper into the corners. Wait. A brilliant maneuver from Jake Feimster, who has just moved up the field.
Absolutely. Jake is really putting on a clinic out there, and he's making it look easy.
Things are getting spicy now, as Ryan Wilson and Jake Feimster look to battle it out for third place.
You're right. Ryan in third needs to stay cool under pressure and make every move count. But Feimster is a fierce competitor, and won't give up without a fight.
Wait. A brilliant maneuver from Jake Feimster, who has just moved up the field.
Absolutely. Jake is really putting on a clinic out there, and he's making it look easy.
Jake Feimster could be looking for a way up the inside of Ryan Wilson.
For sure, Hal. That's exactly what I would be doing here, as Wilson is gonna be aware of him riding his bumper.
It's like watching two predators circling each other, waiting for the perfect moment to pounce.
You know what they say, keep your friends close, and your racing rivals even closer. Looks like Sketty is taking that advice to heart today.
Kevin Lekmanski is running fourth, and trying to catch Jake Feimster.
Sometimes you have to take risks to win, but pushing the car too hard can be a costly mistake. Kevin needs to be careful not to overdo it.
The pursuit is on. Malero is closing the gap on Kevin Lekmanski, determined to claim P4. It's not looking good for Malero, who is still behind Kevin Lekmanski, and the gap is increasing.
Malero needs to get it together to make a dent in that gap.
These drivers are walking a razor's edge between pushing the limits and making costly errors.
Absolutely. It's all about finding that sweet spot where you're pushing the car to its limits without crossing the line into reckless driving. It's a fine line between pushing the car to its limits and losing control. Sketty is really walking that fine line.
Looks like we might have a great battle starting here between Kevin Lekmanski in fourth and Malero. It's been tense with a gap of only 0.3 seconds.
It's not over yet. Malero is right on Lekmanski's tail, and if he can find just a little bit of extra speed, he might be able to make a move.
Every move counts now as Malero works to reel in Kevin Lekmanski and overtake for P4.
We'll have to wait to see if Malero can use the draft to his advantage, or if the lack of downforce will hinder his progress.
Things are heating up as Sketty tries to close the gap to Malero.
Don't forget the role of aerodynamics. Sketty should use slipstreaming to his advantage and close the gap to Malero.
Jake Feimster is in third, and is being closely chased by Kevin MkII, who is just 0.2 seconds behind.
Absolutely. Feimster in third is doing a fantastic job of maintaining his lead, but he can't afford to make a single mistake. Kevin is looking for any opportunity to make a move. This could be a battle to the finish line.
Hold up, breaking info. Fantastic move from Jake Feimster, who has just gained a position.
Impressive. Feimster is really showing his skill and determination out there.
Malero has a battle on his hands now, coming through start-finish with Sketty hot on his tail. Hold on a second. A tough moment for Malero, who has just lost a place, now in 6th.
Sucks to be them, Hal. Malero needs to get the lead out, Hal, otherwise his backside is gonna look like the Japanese flag come the morning.
We're watching Kevin MkII in second, and is currently being hounded by Jake Feimster with a gap of just 0.2 seconds.
This could be where Feimster is gonna dive up the inside. MkII is going to need to cover the inside, and that will compromise his exit speed.
The fans are on the edge of their seats. It doesn't get any closer than this.
If Feimster pushes too hard, he might end up taking the scenic route, and nobody's got time for sightseeing during the race.
This is where the skill and precision of the drivers really comes into play. Ryan Wilson is chasing Jake Feimster in P3. Sketty has the pedal to the metal, chasing Malero. Breaking news, folks. And Sketty has just won the place from Malero.
Go, go, go. That's what we want to see. It looks like Sketty has the speed to make a move. I just hope he can do it cleanly.
These drivers are battling hard for this position, each one trying to outsmart and outmaneuver the other.
A misjudgment by either driver could result in a close encounter of the tire barrier kind, and that's one handshake they'll want to avoid.
This one's going to be tough. Jake Feimster is getting his elbows out, and there may not be enough time left for Ryan Wilson to make a move.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for Wilson to make up that gap, especially with Feimster defending so well.
The pressure is on as Ryan Wilson tries to catch up to Jake Feimster. The gap between Ryan Wilson and Jake Feimster is growing. It's now up to 0.4 seconds.
This is not ideal for Wilson, but there's still time to turn this around. He'll need to focus and not let that gap get any bigger.
Look at that, Sketty is hot on the tail of Ryan Wilson.
Sketty is really pushing the limits. He's riding the curbs and hustling that ASRL T70 MkII Spyder like a boss.
Oh, this is getting intense. Ryan Wilson is just a few car lengths behind Jake Feimster. Breaking news, folks. That won't be ideal for Adam.
It's a real shame. Until this point in the race, he'd been looking at a decent result.
This is going to be a nail-biter. Ryan Wilson is defending for his life, but Sketty is right there doing everything he can to force a mistake.
Sketty is certainly pushing all he can, but the gap might be too much. Unless Ryan makes a mistake, it looks like he'll hold on to third.
Sketty wants to get into Ryan Wilson's slipstream.
To achieve anything in this game, you must be prepared to dabble at the boundary of disaster.
The action is heating up here as Ryan Wilson is in third, defending from Sketty, who is only 0.4 seconds away. Sketty is giving it his all, chasing down Ryan Wilson in P3. Sketty appears to be losing ground on Ryan Wilson. He'll need to pick up the pace a bit heading into Raiffeisenhügel to get a good exit and gain some ground. The battle for P2 is heating up as Ryan Wilson tries to catch Jake Feimster in P2. Good news for Ryan Wilson, the gap to Jake Feimster has decreased. It's now down to 0.3 seconds.
Exactly what Wilson needed. He can't afford to lose any more ground to Jake.
Sketty is on a mission, chasing Jake Feimster, who's desperately trying to stay ahead.
The gap between them is just over 0.5 seconds. Can Sketty close that gap and get back in range? I can't see it happening at this point.
While speeding through Dr. Tirek curve, Jake Feimster is relentlessly pursuing Ryan Wilson in a high-stakes battle for position. Breaking alert. A great pass for Jake Feimster, swapping places with Ryan Wilson to move up the field.
Yes, but Feimster needs to keep pushing hard. This race is far from over, and anything can happen. Feimster needs to stay focused and drive with skill and determination.
Oh dear, Jake Feemster has dropped down to 4th. Sketty is on a mission, chasing Ryan Wilson, who's currently got a comfortable lead. This is where the race gets really interesting. Malero is closing in on Jake Feemster. It looks like we might get a battle between Malero and Jake Feemster. As a former driver, Ada, how did you manage the physical demands of racing?
It's all about preparation, Hal. Drivers undergo rigorous fitness training to build their strength, stamina, and flexibility. A proper diet and hydration plan is also essential to ensure peak performance on race day.
Sketty is looking for a way to close that gap to Ryan Wilson. Braking update. Superb driving from Malero, who with that overtake has gained a position in the race. The adrenaline is pumping as Malero gets within striking distance of Jake Feemster in their race for 4th. Well, it looks like we have a bit of a traffic jam on the track.
It's like rush hour out there. I mean, I know we're in a race, but can't we all just get along?
You can wish all you want, but I don't think that's how racing works, Ada. These drivers are here to win, and they'll do whatever it takes to get ahead.
I guess you're right, but wouldn't it be great if they all just stopped for high fives and fist bumps?
Sketty is running 3rd, and trying to keep up with Ryan Wilson.
I would not be surprised to see him challenge for the position.
Looking at the lap times, Sketty is not currently on pace with Ryan Wilson. Maybe he'll get a chance to see where to make up some time.
Hopefully Sketty can find some of that missing time and get it back.
Pushing too hard can lead to mistakes, and we're seeing that now. That car is really unsettled from being pushed for every last bit of speed.
You can see that car bouncing around as it rides the curbs. It's a risky move that could end in disaster.
Sketty is pushing really hard, but as we know, pushing too hard can lead to other mistakes, like locking up the brakes or missing a shift. Oh, this is getting intense. Ryan Wilson is just behind Kevin Lekmansky.
It's a battle for position as Wilson tries to make a move on Kevin. This is what racing is all about.
These drivers are walking a razor's edge between pushing the limits and making costly errors.
Absolutely. It's all about finding that sweet spot where you're pushing the car to its limits without crossing the line into reckless driving. The gap is 0.5 seconds now. Sketty is going to have to work a bit harder to close that gap with Wilson.
The action is non-stop as Ryan Wilson shadows Kevin Lekmansky through every twist and turn, determined to claim first. Sketty is running 3rd, and trying to catch Ryan Wilson.
It's all about finding the perfect opportunity. Sketty needs to stay patient and wait for Ryan to make a mistake.
Hold on a moment. It's looking good for Sketty, who has gained a place after passing Ryan Wilson. Every move counts now as Malero works to reel in Ryan Wilson and overtake for P3.
The gap between them is now just over 0.3 seconds.
Malero needs to find some speed, or maybe get more consistent, Ada. He's just put in a slower lap than Ryan Wilson.
It will be interesting to see if Wilson can keep outpacing Malero.
Looks like Jake Feemster is really hitting those curbs aggressively, which can unsettle the car and cause handling issues.
Indeed, taking too much curb can upset the car's balance, leading to oversteer or understeer.
This is a thrilling battle as Malero edges closer to Ryan Wilson in their fight for P3.
This is not going to be an easy pass to make.
This is where the skill and precision of the drivers really comes into play. Jake Feemster is chasing Malero in P4. It looks like Malero is pulling away from Jake Feemster. The gap is continuing to grow as they head through Jokenrindt curve. It looks like Malero is in control. He's ahead of Jake Feemster by over a second, and it doesn't look like he's going to be challenged anytime soon.
That's right, Malero is showing some great form and it looks like Jake won't be able to catch up, barring any mistakes.
The pressure is on as Jake Feemster tries to catch up to Malero.
This is where every inch counts. Feemster is pushing hard to close the gap on Malero. Absolutely, precision and control are key here. Knowing when to push and when to hold back can be the difference between winning and losing.
The pursuit is on. Sketty is closing the gap on Kevin Lekmansky, determined to claim P1.
Sketty needs to focus to have a chance at getting past Kevin.
This is getting exciting. Jake Feemster is looking for any gap that might open up the position.
Malero is doing a great job of defending in the lead, and Feemster is pushing hard to close the gap. It's an exciting race and it's not over yet.
In racing, anything can, and usually does, happen, especially in such an epic showdown.
And the drivers know it too, Hal. He's giving it everything he's got, and you can see him pushing the limits of the car's capabilities.
It's a thrilling pursuit as Malero is right behind Ryan Wilson, keeping the pressure on for third place.
With the way Malero is stalking Wilson, you'd think he's trying to figure out what he had for breakfast this morning.
The intensity is off the charts as Jake Feemster hounds Malero, both drivers pushing themselves to the absolute limit.
Feemster is so close to Malero that if this were a dance floor, they'd be doing the tango.
Breaking update. Now I may be wrong here, but I'm not sure that's the racing line. Things are heating up as Malero tries to close the gap to Ryan Wilson.
One important aspect here is choosing the right braking points. Malero needs to be precise to avoid overshooting and losing valuable time.
Jake Feemster is on a mission, chasing Malero, who's desperately trying to stay ahead.
I would not be surprised to see him get this pass completed soon.
This is where the race gets really interesting. Malero is closing in on Ryan Wilson. Malero has just managed to set his fastest lap of the race so far with a lap time of 1 minute.
The more laps they do, the faster these guys get. This should make for some great racing, Hal.
Pushing too hard can lead to mistakes, and we're seeing that now. That car is really unsettled from being pushed for every last bit of speed.
It's a game of strategy now as Jake hunts down Malero. Yes, it's all about choosing the right moments to push and when to conserve energy, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike.
Malero is holding fourth, but Jake Feemster is right on his tail.
It's not over yet. Feemster is right on Malero's tail, and if he can find just a little bit of extra speed, he might be able to make a move.
The battle for P4 is heating up as Jake Feemster tries to catch Malero in P4.
The mental game is just as important here. Feemster must keep his cool while putting pressure on Malero.
This one's going to be tough. Malero is getting his elbows out, and there may not be enough time left for Jake Feemster to make a move.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for Jake to make up that gap, especially with Malero defending so well.
Impressive stuff from Malero, who has managed to pull away from Jake Feemster, leaving him choking in his exhaust fumes.
Yes, it's clear that Malero is in control out there. He's making it very difficult for Feemster to catch up.
This is going to be a nail-biter. Adam is defending for his life, but David Zahn is right there doing everything he can to force a mistake. Stop the press. Heartbreak for Adam as they slip down the field.
That's got to hurt. Adam needs to get back on the line and minimize the damage. Dave is certainly pushing all he can, but the gap might be too much. Unless Adam makes a mistake, it looks like he'll hold on to sixth.
Hold that thought. A great moment for Malero, who has just gained a place and moved up the standings.
That's what we like to see. Malero is really showing his class today.
It's a close race between Malero and Ryan Wilson in third.
If Malero isn't careful, he might end up turning this high-speed chase into a synchronized spinning routine, and trust me, that's not a crowd pleaser.
Sketty is pushing really hard, but as we know, pushing too hard can lead to other mistakes, like locking up the brakes or missing a shift. The race is really heating up. Malero is hunting down Ryan Wilson with everything he's got.
With just 0.4 seconds between them, Malero will need to close the gap to have hopes of a pass.
The gap between Malero and Ryan Wilson is getting smaller.
This is what racing is all about. Hard-fought battles with as much determination as respect, between friends and enemies alike.
Fantastic racing on show here today, and it's not just the top drivers who are impressing us. Even the drivers at the back of the pack are putting up a good fight, battling it out for every position.
It's a testament to the level of competition at ASRL. Even the smallest mistake can cost you valuable seconds, or even lead to a crash. But these drivers are up to the challenge, and they're giving it their all. It's clear that ASRL really is the place to be for top-quality racing.
Oh, this is getting intense. Malero is just a few car lengths behind Ryan Wilson. Sketty is running second, and trying to catch Kevin Lekmanski.
Sometimes you have to take risks to win, but pushing the car too hard can be a costly mistake. Sketty needs to be careful not to overdo it.
This is a thrilling battle as Malero edges closer to Ryan Wilson in their fight for P3. It seems like Malero is struggling. His last lap time was a bit off the pace of Ryan Wilson.
Hopefully Malero can find some of that missing time and get it back.
Sketty is trying his best to catch Kevin Lekmanski. The gap between Sketty and Kevin Lekmanski is widening. It's now up to 0.8 seconds. Every move counts now as Malero works to reel in Ryan Wilson and overtake for P3.
It's a fine line between pushing the car to its limits and losing control. Malero is really walking that fine line.
Looking at the lap times, Malero is not currently on pace with Ryan Wilson. Maybe he'll get a chance to see where to make up some time.
It will be interesting to see if Wilson can keep outpacing Malero.
It's a brilliant day for racing here at ASRL Österreichring. No chicane. I'm really enjoying this.
This race is truly epic. What a treat to be sat here witnessing this spectacle.
Oh my, Malero is hot on the tail of Ryan Wilson as they drive through Flatshock.
If Malero gets any closer to Wilson, he'll need to send out wedding invitations.
Breaking update. Great driving from Malero, who has just gained a place and moved up to third.
Amazing stuff. Focus and precision, what it's all about.
Looks like Sketty is really hitting those curbs aggressively, which can unsettle the car and cause handling issues.
Indeed, taking too much curb can upset the car's balance, leading to oversteer or understeer.
Sketty is trying his best, but can't seem to find the pace to keep up with Kevin Lekmanski at the moment.
Sketty really needs to push in Bosch curve to gain some ground before Lekmanski drives off into the sunset.
Ada, can you share some strategies that drivers use to manage tire degradation during a race?
Certainly, Hal. Some strategies include adjusting the car's setup for better tire life, altering driving lines to reduce wear, and using tire management techniques like lift and coast to preserve grip for as long as possible.
The pressure is on as Malero tries to catch up to Ryan Wilson.
The gap between them is just over 0.4 seconds, which can feel like miles if you're trailing and not catching up.
It's not looking good for Malero, who is still behind Ryan Wilson, and the gap is increasing.
Malero needs to focus and keep pushing, even when things aren't going his way. If he can close the gap down, he may be able to bring the fight to Ryan.
Sketty is giving it his all, chasing down Kevin Lekmanski in P1. It's game on now. Sketty has closed the gap to Kevin Lekmanski. It's now down to 0.4 seconds.
This is where the race gets really exciting. Both drivers will be pushing to the limit to gain the advantage.
It's a game of cat and mouse out there, with Malero trying to find the perfect opportunity to make a move on Ryan Wilson. The gap is over a second, but every fraction counts.
We're witnessing a battle of skill and strategy between two great drivers, with Malero in fifth determined to catch up.
This is where the skill and precision of the drivers really comes into play. Sketty is chasing Kevin Lekmanski in P1. It's not going to plan for Sketty, who is trailing behind Kevin Lekmanski, and the gap is widening. He may not have an answer for this right now. It looks like Kevin Lekmanski has found another gear in the last sector of the race.
It takes a special kind of driver to perform under pressure like this. Lekmanski has certainly risen to the occasion.
And it's a checkered flag for Kevin Lekmanski, who crosses the finish line with a commanding victory. What a phenomenal performance, absolutely dominant today.
You could feel the tension building throughout the race, but Kevin remained focused and in control. That's what separates the winners from the pack.
What a drive from Sketty, securing a great second-place finish. Well done to Jake Feemster for securing third place on the podium.
Great job bringing it home.
Fourth, fifth, and sixth sees Ryan Wilson, Malero, and David Zahn. Adam takes seventh. Followed by Stefano Amadei in eighth. Exotic Streaming is on his practice out lap.